Peter, this is Matt. I didn't get a chance to provide feedback on that last one. Do you want to do that first or come back to it? You're on mute.
I apologize, Matt. Please go ahead.
Sorry, maybe
Okay.
I talked too long.
Hey, I'll keep it short, and I don't have that much to add. I think the salient points have all been covered, but I would like to say I love this idea. It feels a lot like heirloom toys meets crafts. And one of the problems that crafts, it seems to me, has kind of always had is that it feels like it's just kitsch, right? You build something, you put it on the wall for a while, you get tired of it, and then what, right? And so this kind of solves that problem. I love that aspect of it. I think you should have hit the safety aspect issue of it, and the complexity of trying to do this yourself. Without the right screen paints, without the right designs, all of those kinds of things that made it difficult and made it take hundreds of hours for you. I would focus more on the fact that if you're trying to do this yourself, everybody's going to be facing that. These are not problems that you faced just because you're thinking of making a business out of it. Even if you were just a mother trying to implement this thing, that's what it entailed. And that wasn't entirely clear. The other thing that I thought, I agree with Tim that this is absolutely an execution and attraction deal, and I want to see lots of evidence of that. Even if you can't launch yet, you can do marketing, you can do Kickstarter, you can do all kinds of things that would indicate that you have market traction for this idea. And again, it felt like this was mostly talking rather than testing the proposition and the marketability of the proposition. So I wanted to see more of that. And then I'm sounding like a broken record, but investors are always concerned about the exit. Who's going to buy you out and at what point? They want to know that you're thinking about that and that you've got a plan. So make sure you work that into your presentation. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. John, if you want to share your screen.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for jumping in. Okay. We seeing my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready to time.
We're good.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Jon Mott. I am the CEO and founder of AspireAbility. We are a competency-based talent company. We close the skills gap for job seekers and employers. And we are both a consulting and a SaaS company. Just a spoiler to get this out up front, we have great market traction. We have marquee clients. We're cash flow positive. We have a very strong pipeline. We're on track for $2 million in revenue this year, which we'll get into in more detail up front. But that's to underscore that we have a real problem. We have a broken talent ecosystem. Companies have a problem of both saying yes to the wrong people and no to the wrong people. It starts with the disconnect between what schools are doing and what employers need. If you ask chief academic officers, almost all of them will say they are preparing students for the world of work. But when you ask business leaders, only about a third of them would agree that schools are sending them the talent they need to run their businesses. So the net result is 45% of companies today will tell you they can't find workers with the skills they need to run their businesses. So this gets into this vicious cycle where companies keep going out and looking for perfect fits, searching for the needles in the haystack. When that doesn't work, they settle for someone who's good enough. And when that doesn't work out, they loop back. And this can cause hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in losses just one bad hire can easily cost a couple of $100,000 for a company. So what's our job to be done? Our job to be done is to enable organizations to create the talent that the job market needs. We're saying that the talent just doesn't magically exist out there. You're going to have to create it. And we believe that in the process of doing this, we can help increase the incomes of 1 million people by 30% or more in the next 5 years. Not only does that mean upskilling individuals and helping them in their career paths, but it means sourcing the talent to these companies that they desperately need to run their businesses. So it's a little bit complicated because we have a three-sided market. You have job seekers who are going out and saying, hire me, I want a better job. They're armed with resumes, LinkedIn profiles, job applications. And then when they go to school or a boot camp or whatever, they get artifacts that look like transcripts, credit hours, grades, certificates. And then employers post job postings that are inaccurate, ambiguous, sometimes inconsistent, sometimes 3 or 4 postings for the same job. And we have this data problem where this data just doesn't align. And so it's no wonder that we have these false yes and false no problems in the job seeking and hiring process. So what do? So AspireAbility works directly with companies. We go in and we help them fix their bad job descriptions. We turn those into validated, trustable competency maps. And then on the school side of the equation, we help them put a data layer or a competency map layer on top of their degree program. So computer science degree from University XYZ. Well, what knowledge, skills, and abilities does somebody have coming out of that, separate from what you would just see on the transcript? And that allows us to create validated competency profiles for individual job seekers. Now, there's a lot of moving parts here. So what does this look like from an actual business standpoint? We have 3 kinds of projects we do. So type 1 is, as I mentioned, directly working with the companies to help them shore up the competency maps for their jobs. Oftentimes, companies have been flying with the same job description forever, and they can't actually articulate with confidence what the knowledge, skills, and abilities are required for a job. So companies we're currently working with on this front, AWS, InStride, and then over on the school side of things, we work with schools, as I said before, to say, what's your degree program? How do you want your students to be able to represent themselves out in the job market in terms of knowledge, skills, and abilities? We're closing a deal right now with Arizona State University on a project like this. And then there's a third type of project, which we're really excited about, with entities that care about both sides of this market at the same time. They want to map both the degree competencies and the job competencies, map the gap, and then help close that. Working on a project right now with Cengage, and we have a request for a proposal from the Texas State Workforce Commission on that front. So there's a huge addressable market here. Companies need talent. They spend billions on training, on recruiting, on tuition reimbursement, and there's another huge growing market around diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does it have to do with competencies? Bank of America set aside $1.2 billion for DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And a big part of their thesis is that if they can make jobs competency-based, drop the degree requirement, they can make these jobs much more objective, transparent, and actionable. So how do we fit in the market? If you think along this vertical axis of time-based education that's credit hour-based up to competency-based, and then along the horizontal axis, you have broad general education to career-focused to company-specific. You can kind of see where traditional education fits in and some of the newer players in the market. And we're really up in this top right quadrant where we're really focused on competency-based education for specific jobs at specific companies. So what's our go-to-market plan? So we first, as I mentioned, we do the mapping of the degree or the job. We then create assessments so you can measure where any individual stands relative to those competencies. That leads to upskilling plans. And when you map multiple jobs, then you can have career pathways. So we start with a consulting offering that leads to an implementation of our platform, which is increasingly more scalable and higher margin over time. So the platform itself, when you put that in somebody's hands, an individual can see where do I stand relative to a job I have or one I want. And for people leaders, they can see where do my people stand, what do they need to be working on. As we go along, we're developing IP around our platform, our competency maps, the assessments, and the credentials themselves. So market validation and traction. In 2019, we had some great traction with some really good customers, and we were off and running. And then 2020 came along, and discretionary spending on talent kind of came to a screeching halt. But we built a great team. I have a background in higher ed, professional development, learning and development at some big companies. Our CTO and I worked together at Learning Objects, where we built competency-based platforms. That company was bought by Cengage. And Derry Berry is our competency-based learning expert, built competency-based programs for Western Governors University. And Dr. Johnson is a 2 times university professor, a professor as well, but is very well networked in the education and workforce space and is driving our sales. So 2021, we have closed $270,000 in business year to date. And we have a very strong pipeline in terms of proposals requested and sent and so on. That projected pipeline value is 1.7 million. Some late breaking news, we're in contract negotiations finalizing with Cengage. In fact, we're invoicing them $50K for what they call a down payment on that contract. They're very excited about that. Another 200 from Arizona State. All of that means that by the end of this month, we should have about 700K in booked revenue for the year. About 20% of that will be SaaS. And as I mentioned, we've received a request for a large, almost 7-figure deal with the state of Texas around workforce development. So what does our outlook look like going forward? You can see our mix of consulting and SaaS revenue changing over time. Obviously, our goal is to push that more and more towards SaaS. Why the big jump in 2023 and 24? We believe as we continue to partner with companies like InStride and Cengage that bring us multiple schools and companies at one time, and partner with state organizations like the Texas State Coordinating Board, and then AWS and their network of customers, we'll be able to springboard our sales and marketing processes. And as we develop more competency maps and assessment tools, we'll be able to make those front-end efforts less labor-intensive and use more machine learning and natural language processing. And as you kind of look forward in this range, we think we become a very attractive acquisition target for some of the bigger players in the market, including some of these folks like InStride, Cengage, but also the LinkedIns of the world, Pluralsights, others who, and even applicant tracking systems might be interested in what we're doing as we kind of transform the way this is done. So here are our asks. First, let us help you power the companies you've already invested in, or the companies you're running. We think we can help improve the talent that you have. But we're also looking to fuel our growth with a $3 million seed round in the form of either a SAFE or a convertible with a $15 million cap. We would use that money to expand our platform, our capacity to meet demand. That's one of our concerns, frankly, right now. And to build out our competency repository and our sales and marketing capabilities. We also have interest from a current partner to participate in a seed round, just as an FYI. So work with AspireAbility and help us aspire higher. Thank you for your time.
You're at 10 minutes and 15 seconds. Catherine, do you want to lead us off this time?
Sure. Thank you for that. You know, this is this kind of assessment and training. I think there is a need for it, just as you said, because sometimes just because you have a degree doesn't necessarily mean you have the proper skill set. So I think that's interesting. And also it pushes out people who maybe don't have a college degree or a higher degree. So I can, exactly. The thing I have a question about, and I always, I'm skeptical, is what are the actual results? Like, how do you quantify that anything worked? You know, I've taken these tests before and then they say that you're appropriate for this or that, but maybe I don't want that job. I'm interested in, and I'm interested in develop my skills in another. Anyway, so I guess my point is that you're in a mature industry where there's exits and there are other players that are already embedded. So you're going to have to compete with those other players that are bigger and are already embedded. So I guess your differentiation is the two types, the consulting type and then the SaaS, which not all of them have. A lot of them are just the old-fashioned business model. So I think one of the things I would emphasize more is your business model is slightly different. And that's another thing too. COVID doesn't matter, because if you are doing it all online, then it doesn't matter if somebody's working from home or going into a physical office, right? Because these tests are all done online, correct?
Yeah. And it's interesting with AWS, the business division we're working with it's about 1,000 people. Half of that team was hired last year during COVID.
Yeah. So I think what I would do is I would up the tech part, because your competitors that are old school and already in the field and way ahead of you might not have that. So I think I would want to hear more about that, because you're disruptive in a tech way, because people want sexy, cool, new tech business models. So you're kind of still banking and presenting it from the old business model, which isn't really sexy to a startup investor, frankly, because it's like, yeah, they've been around. I've seen a lot of these companies. So that's how I would position yourself more techie, and the SaaS. That's interesting. I haven't seen that before. And then secondly, can you give us, even if it's a testimonial, some kind of results, like we placed 10 people correctly and blah, 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 as a result of this, or we were more efficient in hiring, or worker retention. I don't know. It's just like, after we use this is what happened.
Yeah.
I need, you know what I mean? You need some data and statistics.
Sure.
Because
that makes sense.
Otherwise, does it work? I don't know. And then, obviously I would just go out and get comps for exits, because there's definitely been exits in this space. And employers are desperate for anything that will help. But frankly, some of the other stuff doesn't really work. It's a lot of fluff in psychology, and I have a degree in psychology. But, I don't know.
Funny, it's one of those no-duh things that I'm too in the weeds to remember to say. We're primarily focused on the technical skills, not on the soft skills that almost all of the other assessments measure. So put a
that's great. See, and that's important too. I didn't know that. So make that more evidence now. But good luck. Great.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you, Catherine. Matt, do you want to go next?
Yeah, happy to. I agree with Catherine. The biggest thing that I felt was missing was, how do you quantify the advantage that you bring? You start out by describing the problem and how things tend to go south, but that leaves me wondering, how well do you solve that problem?
Sure.
I agree with her on the comps and the exits. I'm sounding like a broken record on that. I always want to see that an entrepreneur is thinking ahead about who the acquisitive partners are and how they're going to get cash back out to the investors. But in this case, if there was a use of funds slide, I didn't notice it. So maybe I was distracted or whatever, but I'm very interested in knowing how you're going to be using the money that's invested and how that directly relates to getting the traction that you want. I thought your start off with the three-sided market was a good explainer. I thought that was a good way to approach it and talk about who your partners are, because when you get more than one customer, those relationships are always kind of hard to get people's heads around. It's unusual, it's complex, and I thought you did a great job with that.
Thank you.
One of the questions that kind of went through my head, a lot of folks that I'm talking to these days are saying hire for values and train for skills. And you seem to be taking exactly the opposite approach. And so I would like to see a little more development of that. It seemed like you were focused very much on the skills during your presentation, and then in your discussion with Catherine just a moment ago, we touched on the soft skills, and I'm seeing a lot of folks focusing on those rather than the technical skills per se. And obviously, a lot of that depends on what kind of position you're hiring for and some of those kinds of things. But those were some of the questions that were kind of running through my head as I was watching the presentation.
Side there, like with Amazon, they have their 14 leadership principles. They have their soft skills framework that they use, and they actually do a really good job with. It's the other side of it where they're asking for the help. So telling that story is obviously important. That's a missing piece.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll turn it back to you, Peter.
Thanks, Matt. Tim, do you want to go next?
Yeah, great job. First of all, it's super clear that you were a teacher, correct? Or you are a teacher? Yeah, it's very clear that you. Right? Yeah. Well, not only the bow tie, but I am a huge proponent of not using transitions in presentations. I think it can be very distracting. You did a very good job. I would limit it. I think there's areas where you don't need them at all. As we're watching presentations, we actually like to read ahead and let you catch up. So I think I just don't think they're always needed, but you did a really good job doing it. It's a very rare skill set. With that, I do think that you did a good job explaining the brokenness of the three-sided market. I would have liked to see those separated because I think it is such a valuable thing to just grasp all at one time. And then how you're fixing it, I know Catherine said that you need to put data in here. I know you're going after the company side first, but I would also like to see what your plan is to going after people that are trying to get hired. Like I know people in our space who've been doing kind of what we do have a really difficult time just getting hired by a normal company. Yep. And so I would love to see there's like, here's my resume, but nobody wants to hire me. Yeah. And so I'd love to see something if it's possible, and maybe it's too early right now to say, look, like,
we actually went back and forth on that with my advising team about, we do have a B2C, a direct to customer plan down the road, but they said, hey, stick with your current model. So I get it. It's kind of a tricky balance there.
Maybe what you could do in part of the exit conversation is, hey, here's where we're going now. We plan to launch a B2C aspect in the next 2 to 5 years or whatever. Yeah. And then here's the people we think that'll buy us. That might bridge something that I'm interested in because
absolutely
wants to hire me. But that's just a thing. But yeah, I think you did a really good job. I'm really interested to see where this goes. I would be really cautious right now of using the asterisk of 2020. I know it's a real thing, but like that doesn't stop you guys from picking up the phone. Sure. And especially since most of hiring right now is virtual anyways. I don't know if it adds any value, whereas like a consumer product or where you have to go and sell to a hospital was a real issue. Yeah. It might actually hurt more than it helps. So, but other than that, you did a great job, and I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Nicholas, do you want to finish it off?
Yeah, everybody's kind of covered my questions. I just have a few more, so I'll be brief. You mentioned some of the contracts that you have upcoming, a $50K down payment, $600,000 something from the state of Texas. What exactly is your price point? And let me kind of bridge that question a little bit. So you've mentioned also AWS, Instructure, and a few other companies on there. So A, what is your price point? And B, who is the target market you're going after? Are you going after big enterprise companies, or are you going, middle market? What does the ideal customer for you look like?
Yeah, so right now, and this is one of the things that's a little bit hard to convey, is that this is labor intensive work. So we're typically not going after a smaller company with a small N in a job. you kind of need to have 20 or 30 or more in a job that you're hiring into pretty regularly for this to make sense. So it's bigger companies. And the price point is sort of 50 to 100K to map one job. So you've got to be able to get some ROI off of that. And then the SaaS business is on top of that. So it's a active daily user model, kind of in tiers after that, if that makes sense.
How is the contract structured? Does the employee have to maintain their employment for a certain amount of time before you capture the entire contract, or you guys paid up front?
No, so the contract is with the employer, and the value for them is getting clearer definitions around their roles. So we have one customer that had literally 6 different job descriptions posted at the same time for the same job. People didn't know what they were applying for. When they got on board, they didn't know what they were accountable for, right? So they're trying to clean up that mess. So they have a smoother onboarding process. It's the expectations for growth are clearer. So this is really a company play right now. And the individuals are benefiting from the investment that companies are putting into that.
Gotcha. Is there an opportunity? I know Catherine talked a lot about the tech and the SaaS. Is there an opportunity to make that a little more scalable to use at a more cost efficient point? I know, us with early stage companies, turnovers in employees and building out teams is a major burden for us, and a lot of capital can be wasted on that massive turnover. So is there down the road an opportunity with the SaaS to have a much lower price point for companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So take, for example, the competency maps we're building with Amazon. Those are expensive to build, but once they're built, they're applicable to all sorts of companies that run AWS. So we'll be able to get those instances up at a much lower price point.
Gotcha. That's great. Well, yeah, great job on your pitch, and the slide deck was wonderful. That's all the questions I have now, Peter.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Great job.
Thanks.
So our last presentation of the day is Work Life with Travis Ashby. Travis, if you want to share your screen.
Yep. You got, hold on one second. Let's see. Okay,
I'll
we good?
for you.
You see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, I'm new to the group, so it's great to meet you all. My name is Travis Ashby. I've been an entrepreneur since 2007, and my company is called Work Life. So I think the thing that you can notice right off the bat is the why in the name. That's there on purpose. It's kind of a constant reminder of why we started this company and what we're doing. Let me share maybe a little bit about that, just a quick backstory. So in 2017, I had sold my previous company 2 years before, and I was kind of looking for my why, trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, and was pretty frustrated. And I ended up at lunch with a mentor of mine, told him about an experience that I had not, that I'd planned to do for like 25 years that I hadn't done yet. And he committed me to do it. And what it was a trip to visit the place where my mom's plane had crashed when I was 12 years old. Shortly after she died, I had a dream about her, and we were on this mountainside with where the plane wreckage was. And anyways, long story short, we ended up talking, and it was this very vivid dream. And I had just always wanted to go to this place. And so he said, well, what better place to go get inspiration for what you want to do next? And so I planned a trip with my 2 sisters to visit this place called Lonesome Lake in Colorado. And the day before we left, I remembered that my mom's wallet had been returned to me shortly after she died. And inside of her wallet was a bunch of money that I had held on to for 27 years. And for me, I just, as a 12-year-old, I just couldn't bring myself to ever spending it. I considered it sacred money, and I kept it. And so right before we left, I told my sisters about this money. They didn't even know that I had it. And I said, why don't we have Mom pay for our dinner tonight? Like, why don't we have her pay for our experience, a river rafting experience in this trip? And when I was on this trip, I was in flow for like 3 days. And I just started thinking about, if you had sacred money, what would you spend it on? And for me, it'd be on experiences with people I cared about. And I started thinking about, well, why don't companies help their people unlock peak experiences? And by that, I mean very meaningful, memorable experiences. Because people they suck at saving, they procrastinate, they're not very creative, they don't know what to go do. And so that's kind of the origin story of where this idea came from. And one of the things I started looking into was how do companies motivate their people currently? And I started realizing very quickly that the way that we motivate sales teams and the way that we motivate, through HR benefits is really outdated. They're really outdated programs. I mean, even something like 401k. I mean, I was talking to Jane.com and they're like, we have like 17% enrollment in 401k, because our 25-year-old female demographic that's millennial does not care about their retirement. And the whole point of a benefit is to attract and retain talent. If that's not doing its job, then, we got to think of something else. And so anyways, I carved out kind of a 4-year plan to be able to launch this company. And the first person I went and spoke with was Jaron Paul, a good friend of mine. He had an idea for a company. I told him about this idea. And he said, well, I'm launching a company called spiff.com. We're looking, at motivating salespeople. Why don't you come help me over here and get some experience? So I said, give me at least a year. So I joined the spiff.com team and helped roll that out for the first, close to a year and a half. And met with a lot of sales leaders and kind of validated some assumptions that I had. So what I kind of found out is that, with salespeople, for example, if they're making $150,000 a year, once they've kind of made this much money, throwing more accelerators at them in the form of cash accelerators, there's a point of diminishing returns where they're not going to go break their backs to hit that next level just to make a little bit more money. But if you have this peak experience, something very significant, and I'm not talking about your old school President's Club trip to Cancun, hanging out with your coworkers in your swimsuit that nobody really wants to go do. We found that that's a very motivating piece. And so I also then joined after Spiff. I went to blueboard.com, which is the leading experiential reward platform in San Francisco. Their clients are Google, Salesforce, Amazon, Pinterest, and they're an experiential reward platform. So think of like Awardco or OC Tanner that's giving away watches and stuff. These guys give away experiential rewards. They have a curation and a concierge team that handles everything. So I went and worked for them to gain some more domain expertise around this idea and to test my assumptions and hypothesis. And I found that HR was broken too. And so what we did is I gave them I told them about what I wanted to launch. And at the time I was calling it 401 play. So think 401k for experiences. And it's like, let's have employees choose their next peak experience, put money automatically from their paycheck towards it, have the company match a certain amount, and make sure that companies are helping their people unlock peak experiences. And my hypothesis is that even if you're like an engineer at Jane.com and you're not really super passionate about selling female clothing, like if your company's helping you unlock these experiences, you're going to stick around. So our whole goal is to motivate people to perform and then inspire them to stay. And so we want to help people turn these ordinary jobs that they have into like amazing, extraordinary adventures so that they want to stick around. So what we have is two different sides of the coin. We have life experiences where it's like, what are the things that you want to go do? What's important to you? And it doesn't have to just be travel. It could be like, hey, I want to build a zip line in my backyard. I want to build a greenhouse. I want to build a home gym so I can have memories with my wife working out. There's all these things that we kind of uncovered at Blueboard. But what we want to do is have people identify what that peak experience is. Like I said, identify it, put money towards it, have the company match. And then we have fulfillment service providers like your Blueboards, Airbnb, other groups, or you can have the card. We have a card that people can use to go book their travel and do their thing. The second part of the coin is the work experiences. So every company that I know on the enterprise side is trying to uncover that corporate social responsibility. Like how do we do meaningful things? And especially with remote workers, it's really tough to people feel disconnected. Even if you like remote work, you're still disconnected from everybody. And it's really important to maybe create a cool, experience where we're going to go to Africa and build an orphanage and be shoulder to shoulder with our coworkers doing meaningful things. It's going to help you have friends at work and it's going to help you stick around. And we want to be able to capture that with some videography and be able to show that we're creating, we're actually really creating culture, truly creating culture. So our go-to-market strategies too, it's definitely sales tech and HR tech. We're going after mid-market to enterprise because we found that we need the volume to make the business model work. And some of the competitors went out of business because they went after SMB. But we're basically going to have like a, kind of a direct sales approach, targeting, the directors of revenue ops at enterprise companies on one side, and then the employee benefits admin on the HR side. We're going to have a free tool, so it's going to be a freemium model where we're going to bring a ton of value just from this vision board that we have, from basically helping sales and HR leaders not have to guess what people want. Stop guessing. It's like you have no idea what people want. Instead of like trying to guess, let's find out. Let's let them all have a work life account, a free account, and have them be like, oh my gosh, we have like 30 people in our company that want to learn how to scuba dive, or that want to go build an orphanage, or they want to do this or that. And so let's get these people out and do these things. And so, really at the end of the day, like we're driving top line growth, and then we're attracting and retaining talent with this. You guys can go back and read this slide a little bit more, but there's just these coin operated sales companies, and they lose their talent, and they think that sales reps just want money. Well, they don't. They need to be intrinsically motivated if you're going to keep them around. We have some different profit centers. Obviously we make money on interchange, similar to like divvy cards, where, cards being spent, we make an interchange, revenue share on that. We have the SaaS model at the very end here, which is the, right around the $5 per employee per month to unlock all the features that we're going to have. The cool thing about that is one of the features is interest-free credit. If you're saving towards this New Zealand trip and it's 12 months out and you're like, I got to get out, I got to go do this now. Well, let's get you credit. Let's get you interest-free credit and make sure that you can go do that trip now. And as long as they're paying the per employee per month, we'll unlock that for them. And then we have, partners like the Blue Boards of the world that will help fulfill on the experiences, and we make money. We make a percentage of money sitting around in float with the deposits. I've interviewed over 150 people in the last 3 years for this idea. I've met with HR leaders, I've met with sales leaders, and it just keeps coming back to me, just validated that, when I talk to these companies and they're like, I'll use Jane because I've already used them as an example. He's like, we've got 17% enrollment with 401k. And we've got this whole matched budget of money over here on the side that's not being utilized, and tuition reimbursements tapping into it. But like, man, if we had 401, this idea, we'd probably have 70% enrollment in this program. We're kind of at the intersection of a bunch of different industries. We're actually kind of paving our own new path. There's no enterprise leader doing what we're doing, but we sit in the intersection of employee benefits, employee engagement, incentives and recognition, and then travel tech. And these are all actually partners. I wouldn't consider any of these competitors. These would be the competitors here. Vacation Fund was a company that was getting some traction out of Canada. They went out of business. I spent about a month with Jessica, the founder, finding out why they failed and how we could avoid the same fate. What we ended up finding is I asked her, like, what would you do, Jessica, if you had $1 million back in your pocket? She said, we would have gone enterprise. We would have integrated with the top enterprise HRIS systems like Workday, Paylocity, and ADP. And we would have focused on that. Tab is kind of defunct. Donde is a company that came up out of our own backyard here in Utah. That's led by Traeger Grills, Jeremy Andrus, and then like some of the local, I guess you can call them pre-seed funds. We don't have a lot of those here, but really, they're all focusing on SMB. We're the only ones that I know that is building an enterprise solution for this. And then me and my co-founder, Todd Miller, he's an engineer, product guy. I'm the sales marketing guy. We're a perfect fit. We complement each other. We both had exits previously. And, we're raising a pre-seed round, 500,000. We've already got 400 committed. We're going after founder angels. And so we've got Scott Johnson from Motivosity, Levi King, Jaron Paul, the Swift guys, Jeff Birmingham, Scott Peterson. I've had meetings this week with Blake Murray from Divvy, Aaron already from Acima. Like we're basically specifically going after angel founders because I feel like they'll be able to help us expedite a learning curve and make sure that we don't make mistakes, costly mistakes early on. And we purposely not built this product or laid railroad tracks to avoid some technical debt and things that we want to try to avoid. And then the 12-month plan is to raise a 5 to 7 million seed round from major funds that have lots of enterprise companies, so that we can get that top-down referral and kind of lay kind of a seed on the enterprise market. And then that's pretty much it. That's work life. It's focused around happiness, and I think that's, hopefully I didn't go over. I didn't time myself, and this is my first time even doing this. So,
thanks, Travis.
Did I go over, Peter?
Yeah, you were at 11 and a half minutes.
Ah, shoot.
If we were in person, we would have pulled you off the stage, but thankfully we're on Zoom.
Oh man.
You got that virtual shepherd's crook there, Peter?
We're working on that.
Dang it.
Nicholas, if you want to lead us off.
Yeah, I thought you did a great job. Obviously, you're passionate about the space. I felt like you kind of took a while to really get into it. You kind of bounced around there with the different experiences you had with companies. I would say for doing this is the first time, great job, but my advice would be get into it a lot quicker. You know, you said you went for this company and that company. I love the story about your mom and the experience you had there, but I would go from there and just jump right into the company because you kind of come back and talk about your experience again. That's kind of the feedback I have as far as the pitch. Question wise, what traction do you have with some of these companies that you've been talking to?
Yeah, I mean, out of the 150 companies we've met with, I'd say we have at least 12 to 24 that are really excited to be beta customers. So, I mean, your Qualtrics's of the world. When I was with Blueboard, I sold Qualtrics, Pluralsight, Vivint, Lucid, those sorts of companies, and they all love what this is. And so no traction as far as, we haven't even built the product. This is pre-product.
Yeah, so, absolutely. What's your plan on, you talk about some of those companies that have failed, and I'm assuming that's because they weren't able to get companies to have employees opt in. How are you going to be able to differentiate yourself enough to get employees to opt into these? Obviously, the number one thing for most employees is my salary. Why do I want to opt into something that might take a little bit of my money away from my pocket currently? Obviously, you mentioned it even. The hardest thing to do is save for a vacation. We live in a society where we want things now. So how do you pitch this how do you get employees to opt into this?
Yeah, so they didn't have any problem getting companies to opt in. That was actually the easy part. The problem is the revenue model failed. They didn't have enough volume with SMB, and there wasn't enough matched money. The most generous SMB offered maybe $200 of match a month. Well, you can't do anything significant with that. Enterprise offers paid vacation. Qualtrics gives every employee $1,500. Basecamp gives every employee $5,000. We just need to give them a better program where instead of just giving them money, because we don't need more entitled employees, for heaven's sakes, let them participate in a program where they put in that money and then they unlock the other half of it. So the budget's already there.
The money's there, you're just reallocating it to different areas.
Yeah, yep.
And how do you continue to grow this so that you're getting, more? You mentioned scuba diving and things like that. How do you continue to grow this so that you're offering a pretty good suite of activities to employees?
Yeah, one of the things that I knew was going to be very hard with this business model was being a fulfillment provider. I didn't want to figure out how to personalize at scale. That's what Blueboard does. They've done the hard part. I went to work for them for a reason, so I could form the partnership there. They do a very good job personalizing at scale and having the curation team, the concierge team handle everything. We're just the fintech component that's unlocking it. And so it'll be really easy for me because I don't have to really come up with all those ideas. We have partners that'll do that. We'll give them the card if they already know what they want to go do. It'll be pretty easy. I don't know if that answers your question all the way. But.
No, that answers my question that it's partnerships and you're kind of the middleman in between. That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I have for now, Peter.
Thank you. Catherine, do you want to go next?
Sure. So, you can tell you're a sales and marketing guy because you're a storyteller. And yeah, the hook with your mom was very powerful in the beginning. And that I think was like, oh, wow. But you do speak super fast.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Sometimes it was like, because I take notes on everything and I was like, I couldn't get everything. So that's when maybe slow down a little bit. But I do think that the fact that you were able to do your homework with these other companies and spend time with them is a true advantage that most people can't. But I think that's partly because you sold a company and you had the time to do this. So, you weren't doing this as like a side gig while you're working somewhere else. But I admire that you really took the time to study and understand why other things failed. And that is a real advantage. I'm personally a little bit like, oh, it's such a shame to hear the low number of people putting money in the 401k, that's just like terrible, but that's life. You can't force people to do it, but I kind of would rather that they put more money in their 401k instead of going scuba diving, because I just think about their future. But at the end of the day, that's what they want. And if they're more motivated to put money aside for scuba diving or whatever, it's their business, you know. But I also am interested about the market. So you really think, like you said, maybe it's people who make 150 or more, because, you know, people who make under that, they would rather have a cash bonus, you know, they would rather be able to buy their kid another pair of shoes. But so I'd be interested about, because you showed a slide, and I know you don't have a lot of time, about who you're going after, but it's more of the, like, you know, mid-level management to executive, because those are the people that are your market. The people beneath that need every dollar they make, you know. But I think it's an interesting idea. You know, I think it will motivate people. I think going the enterprise route, what Vacation Fund failed at, I think that's really where you want to go. You want to embed yourself at that level. So you're talking to, the HR team and all that. So I think that's a really good plan. I think it sounds like you have thought this out well, but it's just so early that it's still kind of theoretical, you know. But I think it would be interesting to know, like, exactly how large that market is of those people, you know, and that kind of data. But great job.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate that. And just one thing on what you mentioned, you know, the one thing that's really interesting for enterprise companies is that, you know, we want every employee to have this work-life account so that we can kind of have this vision board and know what it is that their interests are. And then that can be used by the leaders to be able to know how to motivate them. So it's definitely gonna be something we're gonna give to everybody. We want everyone to use. And there's certainly nothing out there that exists that allows you to have that sort of insight. And so hopefully anyway, I won't get into that, but we have some different ideas on how we're gonna roll that out.
Thank you, Catherine. Matt?
Yeah, this is curious, Travis, because I was talking with Andy Jorgensen last night at Salt Lake Angels, and your company came up, and we were talking about some of the competitors and some of that kind of stuff. So it was interesting to see your pitch today. For me, this got off to a really agonizingly slow start. I wanted to understand what the problem was you were solving and how you were going about it. And it seemed like you danced all around it with your experience with your mom. I'm thinking to myself, okay, how does that relate to employment in any way, shape, or form? And it took a really long time to kind of connect the dots. And so I would definitely rework that part of the presentation. I think your experience with your mom was a good story to have, but it definitely added that human element, but there wasn't a lot of context for it until quite a long time after, and so that for me kind of dissipated the power of it. Throughout this presentation, I was looking for traction and didn't feel like I got much. Interviewing 150 people is great. Selling 150 people is a whole different proposition. This whole thing felt to me very much like an idea on the back of a napkin at this point. And so what I really wanted to see was evidence that risk had been reduced, that you had shown that you've got a traction model, that all of the reasons that the companies that you cited, which interestingly were exactly the ones that came up in my discussion with Andy last night, that the reasons that those companies seem to flounder or fail are the reasons that you've effectively solved. And I came away having as many questions as I had answers. I would love to see a lot more quantification of the value proposition. One of the questions I put to Andy last night was, okay, with a 401k, there's some tax advantages to doing that from the company perspective. It doesn't feel to me like there's really anything like that on this side of the equation. The downside of that, obviously, is that 401ks are really highly regulated, and this space probably is not. But without a lot of evidence that this idea is going to have traction and that the elements are in place to move forward, it doesn't feel like there's a lot for me to say, yeah, I think this is the one that's finally going to hit. So those are kind of the questions that I had. At one point, for example, you were talking about where you were in the process, and you said we've intentionally avoided trying to build it so that we don't have a bunch of technology debt. And I'm saying, prototypes and wireframes and testing and getting commitment from users is not technology debt. That's de-risking your proposition. And I want to see more of that. So those were kind of the concerns and the questions that I had. It's obvious that you're very passionate about this. It's obvious that you've done an awful lot of research. I want to see more quantification behind that research, I guess, is what I'm saying. Those are my main concerns.
Yeah, great feedback. I love it. Thank you so much. Oh, we do have prototypes and wireframes. We have all that clickable, all that stuff, just nothing hard coded.
Okay.
Thank you. That was great. Very helpful.
Thank you, Matt. Tim?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I mean, I echo what, Matt said. I think, you're raising $500,000 and I'm not entirely sure, do you need that much to get your first client? Like, I think 50K can go pretty far with what you're trying to build. And I guess the next round after that is 5 million, but it's just pie in the sky at the moment. I don't know. I think traction, I'm excited to see where this goes. I've been following Riley with Doan Day. So we've considered bringing her up to Park City Angels. I don't know if she's pitched Salt Lake. Has she pitched Salt Lake, Matt?
Not that I'm aware of.
So
first I heard of Doan Day was last night in that conversation. So
yeah, so I think she's got the traction going, and I imagine she's doing enterprise. I don't know if that's her main focus, but she's been doing this for a little bit. But anyway, I'm excited to see where this goes, and we'll follow up, I'm sure.
Thanks, Tim. Travis, great work. Would love to open any questions to the audience. If you want to either raise your hand or drop a question in the chat window. I'm going to share a link in the chat window for the networking session to follow. We typically break out into rooms of 4 to 6 people to get to know each other a little bit better after we drop off. So it doesn't look like there's any questions. Thank you to the presenters. Thank you to our investor panelists. We really appreciate your time and feedback. I'll stay on here for about 2 more minutes just in case anyone needs to copy the link. And we'll be on, I will say, at 11:30 Mountain Time. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Peter.
Ready? Can you hear me now? Okay. We'll see if it'll be. Just like you'd have a networking meeting after a meeting. I think you're hearing me on Skype. Informative stuff, huh? This isn't something where you'd like end up with $250,000 in a convertible note. It's more of a case of there's 4 to 6 that are vetted by venturecapital.org, and then the pitching and subsequent meetings and everything came forward. So Matt is with the Salt Lake City Angels. Tim is with the Park City Angels. So each of them represent, a couple hundred investors. And some of those are on that. Then there'd be some independent investors that were on here. I didn't really know the other two members, even though they were super smart, but I didn't know them. Oh, yeah, Matt's amazing. Yeah. But there was nothing about this that was of negative value to you. It was good for you. Good. Well, this is a fun grouping. We got Germany, Tim, Nancy, and John. I don't know that I know you, but everybody else, and I have some level of familiarity. That's awesome. I'm part of the army of AspireAbility that's been working together for about the last 2.5 years. He did well today, and I'm very excited with the direction and the traction in the group is pretty amazing. Yeah. Likewise, I've been in the employment game for about 12, 13 years, and the things that we were working on just didn't make sense once we talked to John because he just takes kind of an academic approach in a really practical way. And so, yeah, I wish him absolutely the best. Yeah. Amen. Tim, I was really surprised to not hear about the quilts and what they do because you have a little bit of experience with crafting. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. One of the favorite products that you put out, Tim, probably about 8 years ago. You had the idea, and it got started pretty good, but it was deodorant for gamers. And who thinks about deodorant for gamers? But I mean, you got the whole lifestyle thing tapped in and everything else. So it was really cool. Yep. It's yeah, it's shippable as well from an affordability standpoint. So being able to have it as an individual item that comes to the home makes a huge difference. And I'm completely with Tim. That magic point is about $20. Can, can, can I share? Yeah. It's Yeah. You could do kitting in a rural standpoint too, so that it can be highly efficient and help with employment in areas that need it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Matt, haven't seen you, Matt, since the Investor's Choice right before the pandemic. Good to see you again, sir. Absolutely. It's the Jimmy Osmond on acid look. That's it. No, just. I've been involved in rural economic development and also different technology developments with some multinationals for a number of years. I've been around the scene, but yeah, the thing that you've probably seen me with is the rural economic development, and a side project is working with AspireAbility, and I love what they're working on. It's cool. I'm located on the southern eastern bench, so I'm about 7-8 miles from Snowbird and Alta. If you ended at 17th East and continued going straight just up over the ridge, I overlook Juan Diego and the new hospital and the aquarium and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, we're pretty much darn. Oh yeah, I drive by you on a regular basis. It's warm today, but not hot, and we had the first rain in quite some time yesterday and the night before, and desperately needed. We're in a horrible drought situation here right now. Yeah. I've got a long convoluted history with both Peter and his father-in-law. I've been involved with venturecapital.org in certain ways. We actually provided a location for quite some time for Pete with also the um, 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 I can't remember what they called it, but there's a long history. But I'm attending from the standpoint today primarily in support of Jon Mott. Um, I am actually the chief community officer for the company, and so we've been. He indicated only 4 members of what is a really amazing team that's been put together for AspireAbility. And you may remember, Matt, that when we started Accelerant, we were looking for ways to be able to do different assessments in the rural communities where we could assess an entire community and match it with the company. And we were building our own thing and working with another group. And when we met Jon, we realized we don't need to do that. We have the ability to align with them, and it's our intention to be able to tie into what I would call rural or extension type of universities. So think USU extensions and that type of thing, to be able to extend part of the educational components that Cengage is already working on and that type of thing. And it. I've worked with SHRM for years and years. As an example, Jolene, we hired 50 people for health equity in Price, Utah last week. We worked to find people that have a specific skill set, and then we align them with companies in the urban core that simply can't find enough people to work in the urban core. So we create satellites in rural communities. This one requires certification with FINRA, as well as anything that has to do with HIPAA compliance. They are, in essence, with an HSA, a financial services advisor, but they can't do anything to do advisement with the HSA except for expressing what they can do. So it's a step above a call center, decent pay for rural. I mean, it's like 16 and a quarter with full benefits, but they interact with all 50 states and also provinces and that type of thing. Yeah, it's the relationship with AWS is there's 4 different areas within AWS that was having a difficult time with their own education program to actually come up with the certification necessary, and that's what they're drawing out is those 4 specific job descriptions and what it takes to be able to have that. And it's really cool how the system works because it's pretty much self-led. And it takes them through the steps of their own LMS that they have for that, but it provides the ability to, in essence, create the badging necessary to know that you're this far along with the program. With AspireAbility, the intent is to work with about 3. But I don't know that I'm at liberty to discuss until and mm-hmm. Oh. I'd love to speak with them. We're trying to be responsible in our growth, of course, but yes, fintech would be a good target. Anything that's to do with medtech would be a good target. Anyone that would have to do with different programs that have to do with the healthcare industry, for sure. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Specialized uses of like CNAs and things like that are something that's also coming on board because especially in middle America, there's just not enough of them. And so if you can do some training to change the certification just a little bit, but without them having to find their way to an area that may be 40 to 100 miles away for that certification is definitely one of the intentions. All I got to tell you is my name, Joel McKay Smith. It's I'm named after 3 Mormon prophets, and you'll never forget. Just Google Joel McKay Smith, and you'll see my ugly mug. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it sounds like there's a couple of parallels there with what Vector's doing, and I'd be more than glad. Yeah. I know a group that's actually doing kind of gig economy for like CNAs and personal assistants. They're based out of Michigan, but they're very quickly migrating to Utah. Let's talk about them a little bit later on. Okay. Awesome. Oh, cool. Spec specs and SPVs are so cool. Yeah. 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 Anytime with an aggregator, right? Because that's what it is. Sorry about that. I had to go to the potty. Yeah, I could do that. I was going to actually run to the bank, but I don't have to do it right now. Email me the information. So, dude, that was great. I mean, that kind of gives you an idea of the circles that I hang with, and so much of the stuff comes from that. Vibonics came from that group 3 months ago, as an example. So it's silly for me not to be around that, because they know, well, they know the many things that I do, but it just depends on the hat that I have on with Neo ITO. You know, you got your hair cut. That's fine, but it was a value to you. Okay. And you can't have that unless you participate. You can't really have that perspective unless you participate. So who are we meeting with? Is it at 12:30? Okay, that's fine. Send me the information. Okay. Do we know who the name of the company is or anything? So 12:30 my time, 12 o'clock your time. See you then. Bye. I'd completely forgotten because I just finished up venturecapital.org's their pitch fest which would no, I haven't even showered. I'm not gonna make it either. So I was gonna say, if you could we'll wish over to our friends. I mean, the only reason I wanted to go there was to go say hello to him. But yeah, but I mean, no, I've been going all morning. That's hysterical. I for some reason it didn't get into my calendar, and if I don't have it in my calendar, I'm toast.
Yeah,
I,
I'm the same way.
I don't have anywhere.
If it's not on the calendar, it's not my brain.
Yep. So
my calendar is my brain.
there's a woman named Jolene that's an investor from Puget Sound area that was completely intrigued at the combination of AspireAbility and Accelerate, because they're having huge issues with staffing and also getting them up to speed and stuff like that. And half of her financial portfolio is in med tech, in medicine. So we've exchanged emails and telephone numbers, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, in a general application of AspireAbility, it's getting enough people and data in there to validate their skills that it becomes a useful database.
Yeah, it's not inexpensive.
Yeah, I would imagine it's not.
A lot of physical time.
I mean, you can see within an organization where they're tracking skills, and they can sort of require employees to get in there and add their credentials, or taking the exams to track their credentials, and then it becomes super useful. But in a kind of public-facing version, it becomes much more challenging.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've got one more call today for Neo ITO, and I have to go get dog food for my dog and run a couple of errands. But it's been a long week.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we still need to do address stuff for Corey? Are we still?
I've got that spreadsheet done except for 4 of them. I'm going to send that over to her from Wednesday, and just say that. And quite frankly, we needed to know where they lived, but we didn't need to have the address till we put it through, and that was part of the ISIMS system, right? And so
their system didn't ask for address; it extracts it from their resume.
But we had
imagine where you're probably extracting it anyway.
We had 4 resumes with nothing but the city they're from.
Oh, okay.
And so that's all I'm gonna explain to her and say, do you want us to call and go through? But no, I need to get that sent
They
over.
would have all that from their paperwork. Like, just put in all their I-9s, and all, they should have all that. It's kind of a curious project she's having us do.
It is a curious project that she's having us do, because anyone that we had that was there had been handed on to them, and they had talked to them. But I'll send it forward.
I mean, if we gave them equipment and they've disappeared, that's a whole different story.
There is only one person that has equipment, and that's Catherine.
That's Catherine, right? Yeah.
That's it. There's only one person that was given equipment. Everything else, there was no equipment.
Yeah, this is not. I think she thought it was a bigger deal with the 7.
And we have we have Catherine's equipment.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is no problem.
You know, I literally have it up right here. It's a total of 11 people. Eliza Bradley, have the address, no equipment. Kathleen Palmer, we have the address, has equipment. There's Caitlin, Alicia, Braden, April, Donna Burge.
Benjamin.
Wait a second. That ends at April, okay. And that's no equipment. Then we have Donna, Jennifer, Riley, Tori, no address, no equipment. And then we have the postponed start, which is Monique Hollings, which has and will keep. And so I didn't see that as something that we needed the address for, because they've obviously got that taken care of.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either.
So that's what we have is those 10. And I'm just basically going to say, I thought that I saved this with you on Wednesday. My apologies. It's a little bit of a falsehood, but I says there are 4 people that we simply have the community that they're from, and we didn't have an address to extract. The only problem that with it,
she thought we issued equipment to them, and we didn't.
We did not,
except for Kathleen. So this is not a big issue.
It's not a big issue. And the term I'm going out of that is that those four we process some people that don't go through our system, and with those
Right.
and that's what gathers the address.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That's great. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Seems like
Yeah,
that should do it.
Yeah, I mean that I just had this going on Wednesday.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. I'm bummed that we're not seeing our buddy, but sometimes it's just as nice to hang at home.
Yeah, it is. Just get stuff done. It's such a pain these days. In fact, I've just talked to another employee. She has the same position I do. And we were just talking about schedules. We're just like, oh, it's going to be such a pain to go to the office because it's so easy now to just jump from meeting to meeting. You know, so you can really stack your day. If we have to go in the office and move to different places or meet with different people at different locations, it really slows things down substantially.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's something else I want to talk to you about, but it's escaping me. It has to do with Thor, and it's a good thing for Thor.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll come to me. But
and when we get we get our first distribution from Health Equity for this hiring round, I'll catch him up to date on